Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, he invented Gangnam Style and he wants credit for it, damn it.
Damn straight. I want credit in the form of checks on checks, royalties, baby. That Psy guy is stealing my whole thing. Okay.
Your look for sure. Stole your look
for sure. And the dancing thing.
And the dancing. You really were going to want to be watching this on YouTube because Mike just got into it for a second. Oh, what a time the 2010s was. Yes, if you can't tell, Mike is a little bit under the weather with a head cold. He's going to sound a little more smooth jazz than usual today as a result of that. But we're going to make our way through. We're going to slog through a little bit of Royals Cactus League discussion today. That'll kick us off as we look back at the week that was in the Cactus League play for the Royals. And then we'll focus on what we've seen from the World Baseball Classic Royals so far. Not much to talk about, so we might as well talk about the World Baseball Classic a little bit and what we're seeing from the Royals players there. And then we'll preview the slate of games that's coming up this week for the Royals in the Cactus League. They have quite a few of them, so maybe we'll get to watch a couple. I'll probably have to listen to a couple, but hopefully we'll get to see some more Royals gameplay. A reminder that if you'd like extra content from this group, this dynamic duo here, go ahead and subscribe to the Royals Weekly Substack. We're giving a 10% discount for annual subscriptions until opening day. You get an extra episode every week. You get another extra episode during the season every week. You get articles every week and that sort of thing. It's a ton of extra content for very little money. It helps the show. We really appreciate those who subscribe, and we have great conversation over there on the Royals Weekly Substack. So make sure you're giving that a consideration. If you feel like you can't do that, go ahead and rate and review us somewhere. Give us 5 stars, write an Apple Podcast review, and we'll go ahead and read the Apple Podcast review right here on the show. Jump into the comments on YouTube. We love having conversations with people there as people throw out various ideas or questions and so forth. So feel free to participate in those ways too. We really enjoy it. We really appreciate the extra engagement. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
Yeah, I got to get my 3-cone under 10 seconds or my son just will not respect me.
Yeah, he won't listen to a word you say after that. And of course, All in Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently replaced hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
I'm counting the days until I can get some replacement hips. You know, the factory ones aren't performing like they used to, which was not a high standard to begin with. So
it was not. It's like a rusty gate. If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All in Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com, or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. As the dedicated weekly weirdos know, we start our review of last week with roster news. Luckily, there was no significant roster news for the Royals. Oh, he wants to point something out. Mike, what do you got?
I just wanted to point out we haven't really covered Stephen Kolek's injury.
Okay? Oh, I did. Yes,
we have. We'll start with that. Oblique strain, for those of you that did not know. And so, yeah, those can be notoriously tough for anybody, hitters usually, but pitchers as well. And so hopefully he can rest and heal up from that. But oblique strain.
We have not covered Stephen Kolek's oblique strain. I think because it happened, and then we hadn't heard the prognosis between now and last week's airtime, and I missed it this week. And so, yes, Stephen Kolek is down with an oblique injury. They say obliques are tricky. I think they said 3 to 4 weeks, if memory serves, on recovery time, but I'm not entirely sure. It's one of those things that is tough. Mike, what do you think the prospects for that injury are?
Well, it always takes longer than you think for an oblique strain. So yeah, a month. And then of course he's got to ramp back up. So I would say, I wouldn't expect to see Stephen Kolek in Major League Baseball or really pitching for probably month and a half at the earliest would be my, that's kind of maybe the good side of it if he's doing really well in recovery. But still, he's still part of that depth picture. And this is why you're happy you have a Ryan Bergert and Chris Bubich and Noah Cameron, and some of those guys that you can kind of count on there at the back end. So I'm not super worried unless they give me a reason to be. But right now, rest and hopefully back in a month and a half.
Yeah, and they could use that kind of depth because who knows what could happen in that month and a half. But it is good that they have Ryan Bergert, Noah Cameron, and guys who are still able to provide innings in that fifth starter role. Kolek was certainly one of the people in the running for that. But, attrition's going to happen with pitchers over the course of a long season. Hopefully he just takes the next few weeks to recover, and there's no lingering issue with that oblique, because we've seen that be an issue for pitchers in the past. It feels like they're better. They come back, rehurt it, and then it's like, okay, this is becoming a problem repeatedly. Let's hope that's not the case for him. Let's hope he gets just a little bit of a late start to the season. He's probably start down in AAA, getting rehab starts and stuff like that. And then when he's needed, he'll probably be brought up if he's ready for it. Other than that, though, no significant injury news for the Royals. Sorry, we almost left that one out. Good catch, Mike, on that one. On the field, it was a little bit of a struggle for the Royals last week as they adjusted to not having most of their best players. In the absence of Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, Michael Garcia, Vinny Pasquantino, Jack Caglione, and Carlos Aceves. Did I miss any Major League guys?
I can't even tell. That's a long list.
I know. That's a long list. Yeah. In the absence of those guys, the Royals went 2-4 with wins against Team Cuba and the Reds. Right. In the Team Cuba win, it doesn't count towards the Cactus League record. So that brings their overall record to 6-8 currently. Mike, how do you take some meaning from last week's slate of games when so many Royals weren't even there?
Well, I still take meaning from the individual performances. That's kind of it's still spring training too. So, but if you watch guys and you go, hey, would I rather see them succeed and do well with the things that they're working on? Yes. We did not see a lot of that this past week, especially on this pitching side. We had some rough outings from some pitchers in that game, that Rangers game that was televised. What did we give up, 14 in that game? And it wasn't like, oh, well, the front half looked great and everybody else looked terrible. No, it was like bad all around on the pitching side in that game. And it's been, you've seen some kind of negative things from some guys pitching wise, but it's still early. So I'm not super worried. We have seen some offensive guys look a little bit better. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jonathan India here in a second. He's looked a little bit good. The bench battle is a firing up. So that'll be fun to continue to watch, but not a great week, I would say, when you're looking at personal performances from those guys that are left in surprise.
Yeah, and maybe there's an interesting battle you mentioned at the bottom of the bench with Nick Lofton and Josh Rojas, and they're oddly the only two who seem to play pretty well last week, or two of the very few who seem to play pretty well last week. It's a real motivator to keep your job and stuff like that. But maybe there's also one between Noah Cameron and Ryan Bergert and stuff like that. But the reality is the roster is pretty set. You mentioned that Rangers game. It actually was they gave up 15 runs in that game. So the pitching has been a little suspect down in Surprise as some of their top end guys are out, or, as Reagan's had a tough start. I think those are the big takeaways. I am interested in watching Nick Lofton. We got to see a game on TV against the Dodgers last week, and I thought Nick Lofton had a couple of good at bats in that one. And I'm going to talk about him here in a little bit. And I think on the pitching concern side, Noah Cameron went out again today and didn't necessarily alleviate a ton of concerns. And so it'll be interesting to see next week as we get one closer. I mean, eventually the regular season just runs up on you here, right? Like, we're not that far away from it at this point. And so hopefully the Royals can start rounding into form a little bit, and they look good from the start of the season. Mike, we did mention that a few people did have some pretty good weeks last week. Who was your strong performer last week?
I'm going with Jonathan India. He was 3 for 5 with a home run, a double, a walk, and 2 runs scored. It's really kind of the Jonathan India that you hoped you were getting. And if the Royals are adamant that he's going to get a lion's share of the time at second base, or an equal share at least of the time at second base, you're going to want him to produce offensively. You're going to want him getting on base. The line drive rate needs to be really good for him. Yes, the fences, they've mentioned this, I think, on the broadcast. Yes, the fences coming in will help him maybe a little bit, but he doesn't need to be thinking about that. He needs to think line drive, and walk, get on base, use your eye to your advantage, because it's his number one attribute. And so, yeah, it was good to see Jonathan India do some stuff out there. He's a guy too, that if he really plays well in that first half, you could see the Royals moving on from him, even if they're in contention, because it's the last year of his deal. he's kind of a leadoff guy who probably won't lead off for the Royals very much. And so if a team really needs somebody to play second base and get on base, you might be able to flip him at the deadline if he's hitting. And so we'll see or even before. I mean, it would shock me if they did this, but even before the season starts. So yeah, Jonathan India, good looking out. Hopefully he can continue that.
Yeah. And that's been a couple weeks now for him where it looks like the approach has really been about like, hey, I'm a patient hitter. I'm an on-base guy. I'm looking to get on base before I'm looking to do anything else out here, because that's really where his value is. That's where he'll make his money. He needs to continue to be ultra patient at the plate. And, you know, if he hits the line drives, the power numbers will be good enough for Jonathan India. They're never going to be super impressive. He doesn't hit the ball very hard, but hit those line drives and he'll get some extra base hits sprinkled in there. I'm talking about a guy who has a very similar offensive profile to Jonathan India. Honestly, he had a good week last week, and that's Nick Lofton. He's in that battle with Josh Rojas, who previously we've picked as a strong performer. And those two seem to really be battling out. And they're really the standout offensive players of the guys who are left, because they're both real hot lately. Nick Lofton went 4 for 8 last week with 1 double, 1 home run, 2 walks, and no strikeouts. He's been showing that really patient approach to the plate, which is great, but he hasn't been until roughly the last week making solid contact. He started making solid contact. I don't think we've seen any sort of improvement in bat speed because the exit velocities just aren't there. Yeah. They're not there. They're not there. They haven't improved drastically. I would have liked to have seen it, but they're not there for him. The question is, do the Royals think he can be valuable enough without that raw power, without the ability to produce exit velocities, to make the roster? Right. And I think his case obviously is the defensive versatility and the quality of defense, whereas Rojas, maybe you get a little more of a case for the ability to hit the ball a little bit harder, a little more bat, a little more offense. So we'll see how that ends up playing out and what the Royals ultimately end up valuing more. But Dick Lofton, if nothing else, did have a good week last week. Mike, you mentioned a little bit of our week performer already, but let's hear who you thought didn't stand out last week.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners saw this as well. Cole Reagans did not look good in that start against the Rangers. It was 1 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs, 1 hit by pitch, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. Before the Berger home run, I thought his fastball looked really good. Before that Berger home run, I was like, you know what? The fastball's looking good. His secondary stuff was gone. He could not control his secondary stuff for anything. He bounced one that the guy ended up taking at second base, but it was about 50 feet. That's like
50 feet. I remember that one. It was a great block from Carter
Jensen had to stand up to block it.
He had to stand up to block it
because so far in front of him that the guy was able to get the second. But
exactly.
He could not control where any of that stuff was going. It didn't matter if it was the changeup or the slider, or he did throw a get me over curveball that I thought was like his best one of the night. It was not good. And then after he got taken out of the first inning and then brought back in the second, the fastball didn't look all that good either. And so I thought there was some good stuff in that first part of that first inning, some tough luck stuff too. And then he just couldn't get out of it. And it didn't help that there was nothing for his secondaries in that game. And so I'm not worried. You know, it's Cole Reagans. Every once in a while, we saw him get the shit kicked out of him against the Rockies a couple of years ago in spring training. So I'm not worried. And that was the year he almost won the Cy Young. So I'm not, that was that year. I'm not super worried about him. But I wish, he needs to tighten up those secondary pitches, especially.
Yeah. He always has that one start in spring training where he just comes out, guys are taking him the other way, or he's not locating anything in the strike zone. So they're taking walks. And then every once in a while he puts one across the part of the plate. Somebody hits it real hard, right? Like he always has one of those over spring training. Let's hope he gets that out of his system and starts getting a little sharper as the season comes. I think he's likely to be your opening day starter, right? I'd imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
The Royals. Yeah. So we'll see him. He needs to really be ready for March 27th. That's his big thing. I'm talking a little bit about Isaac Collins, who did not play well again last week. And it's getting a little, it's getting time to start flipping the switch for guys. And Isaac Collins is struggling to do so. He went 0 for 6 last week with 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and 1 caught stealing. You hate to see the 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, but you also, I watched some of those at bats because I watched him in the Dodgers game just today. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it today. And yeah, he was chasing a little. He was a little over anxious to get some hits. It looks like he really wants to, go up there and prove that he's, the guy that they traded for. And he's like putting a little pressure on himself even at this point. And so I hope he can calm down. I hope he can stay healthy with the knee. I hope that's not bothering him at all, and just start getting honed in, because he really needs to get everything ready to go. Remember, other teams, best pitchers and stuff are gone some too, playing in WBC. He's facing some guys who aren't necessarily the best, and yet he's struggling to put together good plate appearances, get hits, and produce. And so hopefully he can sharpen up a little bit in the next couple of weeks and feel good going into the regular season. Mike, themes plenty easy to find this week. Who'd you go, or what'd you go with for a theme?
I went with a classic, my man. I went with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Little Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. I'm making this up as I go. That's kind of how it felt this week. I imagine Q probably was feeling that way. Like, who's still here?
Yeah,
put him in there, I guess. Like, let's do it. Carson Rockefort's getting at bats. Blake Mitchell gets at bats from time to time. Like, let's get him in there. That Drury guy, he's the only guy I ever see playing.
Kevin Newman and Brandon Drury, they play every game, man. Like they play every game. And so,
yeah.
Nick
so
Lofton's hitting second
like
in this lineup.
That's right. Yeah,
it's wild.
Well, I saw Kyle Isbell. I think he was hitting third the other day. I'm like, okay, we're doing it. I'll be really happy when that World Baseball Classic is over and we've got our full team back and we can actually see what that lineup's going to look like 1 through 9.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's tough. The World Baseball Classic is making what is, normally not a very meaningful thing anyway in spring training, even less meaningful. And I'm like, oh, come on. I know we can watch the World Baseball Classic games, and I have watched some of those. I watched Italy play today, but I'm like, I don't know. This is tough. Great Britain, they're not rolling out the best. And so, but anyway.
Although, did you see that relief pitcher? There was a relief pitcher for Britain, and now I'm gonna forget his name, but he struck out Aaron Judge and Bryce Harper back to back.
I did hear that.
He's some minor league guy. I was like, that is pretty awesome, and his breaking ball looked really, really good. I was like, yeah, that's gonna. I mean, he'll never. Guess what story the grandkids are hearing every fucking day.
Every Christmas. Oh, sit around, everyone.
Everybody sit around. I've got another story to tell.
Grandpa's 3 sheets again, and he's ready to tell his story. I'm going with a Linkin Park classic, which we all know. Everyone of Mike and I's generation knows this song, or anyone's basically. But it's a direct reflection of what's taking place in spring training. And it is, I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
A classic. That guy is no longer with us. R.I.P. The lead singer of Linkin Park. Sorry. Probably brought up some feelings for some people out there. R.I.P. to that guy. Can't remember his name. I think his first name's Chester.
Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
It's a foolish man who climbs a ladder and falls to land.
You skipped like 2 of your lines from this ad.
No, we have window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
We're going to start over. YouTube watchers, you get to see all this because,
this is how we record it, guys.
This is how we record it.
I was actually checking a WBC box score when we did that.
Oh, okay. Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
Window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
And why is that?
'Tis a foolish man who climbs a ladder and falls to land.
If you're wise like Mike, reach out to the professionals at Window Wolf for all of your window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and pressure washing needs. Window Wolf is a locally operated small business with all the professional know-how to keep your feet on the ground and your house or business shining bright. I've known the owner of Window Wolf for years, and I can tell you there's no one more reliable for high-quality service. Plus, Window Wolf is revolutionizing the home maintenance space with their new instant price calculator, which gives you a free quote without a home visit or entering a bunch of your personal information. Window Wolf is making the process easy and the price affordable. And for a limited time only, you can get 50% off when you book using their instant price calculator. Just visit windowwolf.com. That's windowwolf.com and use the code Royals50. That's Royals50, no spaces. When using that instant price calculator and save big bucks on quality service.
50% off just in time for rainy season. I need those gutters tip top and I'm getting half the price. Yes, please.
Be smart. Let the pack handle your pains with Window Wolf. It's tough talking about the Royals these days because the Royals are all scattered to the wind. Team USA has the Royals' heart, Team Venezuela has the soul, and Team Italy has the muscle. So instead of talking about the Royals per se, we're going to focus on what we're seeing from Royals players helping their respective nations in the WBC. As a reminder, Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Wacha, Salvador Perez, Michael Garcia, Luinder Avila, Vinny Pasquantino, Jack Caglione, Seth Lugo, and Carlos Estevez are all playing in the World Baseball Classic. Mike, are you seeing anything that you like from any of these WBC guys so far?
You know, not anything of note. It really only got it started in earnest on Friday. Before that, they were kind of exhibition games. Bobby had a really good opening day against Brazil. He got on base 3 times. He led off for Team USA, scored a run. Vinny and the Venezuela contingent have probably played the most. You know, Vinny hasn't shined yet, but, you know, notoriously slow starter. Has to get his timing. But Salvi and Michael have recorded some hits. They've looked pretty good. You know, I haven't seen enough yet to really say, oh, this guy's killing it, this guy's not. But yeah, so far Bobby had a good game. Vinny's had, I think, maybe one good game. But the Venezuela guys have Salvi and Michael are doing pretty good.
Yeah, Luinder Avila, I think, had a strong outing too the other day. Looked pretty good with his curveball, especially, as usual, his go-to pitch. Seth Lugo had a solid game the other day for Puerto Rico that ended up being real important. I think he only pitched like 4 innings, but I think that ended up winning in a walk-off. But he also got himself out of a big spot of trouble to end his outing, and that was encouraging to see him sort of dance through the raindrops in that way. We all have our eyes on Lugo a bit because I think we're all a little wondering, hey, what can he bounce back? Can he bounce back from the injuries he had last year? He's pretty old. Is the age decline starting and all that? So it's nice to see him go out and perform a little bit on that stage. He is their number 1 for Puerto Rico. So you got to imagine and he's 37. I don't think he's going to be like, oh, I'm going to only throw 1 game like Tarek Skubal has said and stuff like that. I think he's riding or dying with Puerto Rico. So it'll be really interesting to see how far he goes, how much they have him pitch. I'm sure the Royals are pretty strict on, hey, we don't want him pitching that much. So it'll be interesting to see what that ends up happening. If Puerto Rico makes it through, does Lugo get 2 or 3 games here in the World Baseball Classic? We'll see. Mike, we talked about the players who maybe have done some stuff. What's concerned you looking at these WBC players and their play?
Yeah, my biggest concern is that Cags isn't really playing so far. You know, he's been, I think, in one of the actual games and one of the exhibition games. He's got, I think, 2 hits and 6 at bats, but he didn't play again today. That's a little bit concerning for me because we mentioned you told me they were going to play him, Mark. You lying.
I thought they should be playing him. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing not playing.
I worry about a guy who needs those reps, riding pine. He needs to be working on that approach. And if he's not doing it in spring training, damn it, he better be doing it in the World Baseball Classic, but he ain't doing it sitting on bench. So we need him in there playing, getting meaningful at bats. And I haven't seen it so far. Now it's still early. Maybe he goes in and starts playing pretty regularly, but I would be a little bit surprised. I think they're leaning into more of a veteran kind of lineup for Team Italy. And that's a little scary because Cags needs the work.
Yeah, it makes no sense not to play him today. They were facing mostly minor league pitchers, and we know what Jack Caglione has done to minor league pitching. He destroys it. And so I'm surprised they didn't play him today. Yeah, I know it's something that concerns me a great deal as well. We talked about how that would be kind of worst case scenario. I guess worst case scenario is he gets hurt, but second worst case scenario is he doesn't play much in the WBC. We saw how that impacted Bobby Witt Jr. We saw how it impacted Brady Singer. It's not great when you get selected for the WBC, you go and you just sit there. Like, that's bad. He has a new approach he's meant to be working on. He needs to be working on it. And you only work on it by going in and facing pitching. That's a big, big part of that equation. And so, yeah, I'm not in love with the notion that he's not playing much. And Italy is now 2-0. If they can find a way to beat Mexico, are they in that group? They're not in that group, are they? I can't remember, but they're in decent position for their pool. So there's a chance that they dark horse move on to the next round, in which case he's going to be with that team even more. And so he needs to be seeing some plate appearances.
Yeah, they are in the group with Mexico, the United States, Great Britain, and Brazil.
Okay. So it'll be tough to get out of that group because only two people make it to the next round, and the U.S. and Mexico are both very good teams. But it's not outside the realm of possibility that Italy beats Team Mexico and has the tiebreaker and has pole position for moving on. So also I want to point out that Waka had a little bit of a struggle late in his outing. You know, you always wonder about what that's going to look like. He got roughed up a little bit. It wasn't terrible. He was more like out of gas because it's spring training time and he hasn't built up his arm kind of a thing. And so I'm not too worried about it, but it wasn't great to see him get a little bit lit up in that outing. So hopefully he gets another chance and does a little better. Mike, who do you think has the most to gain and lose from the WBC? I'm talking about people not named Jack Caglione. We've already expressed our concerns there.
Well, you kind of expressed this one already too. Seth Lugo has the most to gain. You know, Lugo had such a down year at the end of last season with the injuries, the concerns about the velocity, the age decline. He needs to come out and show that the fastball can sit in that 92 to 94 range that makes those secondary pitches, especially the curveball, a lot more effective. And so we'll see. Yes, he had that strong outing in the first one. I can't remember who that was against. Was it Panama?
My memory is terrible.
Yeah, it's not good. I looked at it today. It might have been Panama it was Colombia. They're playing Colombia. So not a strong squad, if you will. And his pool is not all that good. Canada and Cuba are probably the top two outside of Puerto Rico. And so I want to see that he should dominate those types of lineups. Like he should perform well. He pitched, I think, 4 innings, had no earned runs in that first start. Let's see how the velocity looks on the fastball. Let's see if he's going to be a guy the Royals can lean on this year, or are they going to be saying, oh my God, we just spent a whole bunch of money on a guy who's a 4.5 ERA guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think we know it's not outside the realm of possibility that he takes a step back and that, you know, that looks like maybe the low 4s in terms of ERA or even mid 4s if it's really fallen off the cliff. Yeah, that's why I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to Lugo and what he does, and it's likely that Puerto Rico moves on. He's going to pitch quite a few games for them. Like that's just going to happen. Like if it's 2, if it's 3, whatever, he's their guy. And so he'll be playing probably if they move on in some more intense games, and he'll be playing hopefully showing a little bit that he's ready to get back to the regular Lugo. I'm talking about Vinny Pasquantino as somebody who has the most to gain or lose from the WBC. And I just mean this in terms of like getting right for the season. So far, I don't know that he's ever tried or had the chance to really try playing in the WBC. I know he played once before in there, but I don't know how much he played. But I hope that playing in the WBC, playing in these more intense games, gets all the bad hitting out of him before the regular season starts, honestly. Like hopefully his mind can get right in those games and he hits the ground running. I think it means a lot for him. Like what's weird is in the games, I watched the games today, he hits third for them today, and they're talking about him like he is the best player on Team Italy, but he's also like the only player who goes 0 for the day, right? Like he went 0 for 4 or whatever with a walk, and everybody else is getting hits around him. They score like 7 or 8 runs, right? Like, and so hopefully he's like finding a way to let his psychology get in the right place before the regular season gets here, because I don't like the idea of him starting with a real cold month to start the regular season. I want him to get everything dialed in the WBC setting. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxer of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
Bring your SPF 50 and some Tums, because we're getting wild in the PHX.
Eric was one of the top realtors in the Phoenix area in 2025 because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxer of West USA Realty, it's not about him. It's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
I once saw a house in Phoenix with glass walls. Okay. Now that might have been a greenhouse, but I don't want to chance it.
Got to get real walls in there. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. The Royals will continue Cactus League play this week with games against the Guardians, Mariners, Giants, Cubs, Padres, D-backs, A's, and White Sox, with a split squad game coming on Wednesday. You may have picked up that that's 8 games in 7 days. That's because they have a split squad on Wednesday. Well, I don't know who they're going to find for that split squad. It's tough enough to make one team for them right now. Like, it's, who knows who'll be playing? Up. Yeah, you're pitching.
That's right. Drury, you're playing all of the field positions.
So there's lots of Royals baseball to watch this week. Who knows the quality of that play, but lots of chances to watch some minor league guys get time out there. Mike, what are you looking forward to seeing this week?
How is the pitching staff coming together? But specifically, how does Reagan's bounce back from that rough outing that we talked about earlier? Does the bench battle clear up? That's another thing I'll be looking at. Rojas versus Lofton. Does, Tyler Tolbert make a late run at possibly making that bench?
Does Kevin Newman? Does Brandon Drury? Does Cameron Meisner?
I don't think so. But those are kind of the things. I want to see the pitching look better than it did this week. And I want to see the bench battle really heat up because those guys are going at it. It's like who have been the 2 most consistently good players over the last couple of weeks? Nick Lofton and Josh Rojas. They have been, offensive juggernauts. And I want to see that. I want to see Reagan's get back to being successful. If it's just, hey, I just tightened up the control on the secondary pitches, I'm okay with that. If the fastball's not that effective or it's not where it needs to be yet, okay with that. But I got to see more from those secondary pitches because he looked rough in that first one.
Yeah, speaking of pitchers, I'm interested to see Noah Cameron out there today. Not this week. Cameron wasn't great today. He hasn't been super sharp all spring, actually. It'd be nice to see him have a strong start before the regular season kicks off. So if he gets one next week or the week after, that's fine. But we're coming up on, we're getting fewer and fewer games to have him really show that he's ready and tightened up for the start of the regular season. And they kind of need him. Kolek's out of the running now. And it looks like Cameron has pole position for the 5th starter spot. They need him to be effective. And, the stuff looks pretty good. He is the type of pitcher who will always have more trouble in Arizona during spring training than other types of pitchers, but because he relies on that curveball so much, because the curveball is an important pitch for him, because he doesn't throw overly hard and he gives up a lot of fly balls, his numbers aren't going to look great in spring training. That's like a recipe for home runs, for his, curveball not really going where he wants it to or getting as much break. And so, I'm not too worried about him in terms of like the overall performance, but I would like to see him go out and really have a strong start, especially not walk many people. He's had some issues walking some guys this spring where I really wanted him to tighten that up a little bit in the offseason. I'd like to see him go out there and if they're going to get hits, make them earn it, not walk some guys and have some solid starts as we go into the season. Mike, as I mentioned, we're getting nearer and nearer to opening day. This is basically the next to last week of spring training. What does this team need to do in the last little bit here to round into form?
We need to get our guys back from the WBC. That's what we need to do so that we can see them all as a group. Pitchers obviously need to stretch it out a little bit, the starters, and tighten up their command of things and how they're going to be using their pitches. But I want to see our guys get back from the WBC and not have like a big hiccup and, we're basically ramping up again because I'm Jack Caglione and I never got to play, or I struggled the whole WBC if it's like Vinny or something. Right now, the only guys I'm not worried about at the WBC are the Venezuela guys because I know they're playing like every day. And it's like, okay, I know they're playing every day. I know they're getting at bats. I know they're doing the things that they need to do. Even Bobby's not playing every day. He's, a top 5 player in the world? He doesn't play on Team USA every day. And so not something that I like that way, but hopefully we can get them all back here. I assume Team USA is going to make a solid run, so it'll be a while, but I need to get them back, and I need to see 2 or 3 games where we have our actual lineup before we get into actual games.
Yeah, I think that 2 or 3 days in a row is really like an important peak of spring training. You hit that like maybe 4 or 5 days before it really ends, or before opening day, or maybe an entire week before opening day, but you feel really good because it's like, hey, those guys are in there, they're playing, a solid 7 or 8 or 9 innings for a couple days in a row, and they're good to go.
And they give you 4 at bats, and the first time they give you those 4 at bats in a game, and the first time, you're playing into the 7th then usually, and we're not seeing that, we're seeing them play sometimes full games in the WBC and then have a day or 2 off. I think it's important to be able to bounce back for that next day.
Yeah. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that. The notion of guys working together as a group is actually like really important to me. I want to see double play tandems working in tandem, guys communicating in the outfield and stuff like that. That's all really important. And they haven't really been doing it for about a week and a half since those guys have been gone. And so, yeah, it's important that they get and work together. I also think it's important that the hitters in the WBC get to consistently face MLB pitchers again. Like the guys that they're facing aren't necessarily MLB. I mean, basically the Italy lineup faced entirely minor leaguers today. Right. And it's like, that's not what they're going to be seeing come regular season time. They need to be seeing the type of pitching they're going to be seeing regularly. Now, if they advance to the quarterfinals, odds are they're going to be facing more of that major league pitching, but I really need them to get back and start seeing it because, we've got maybe 14 games left, maybe tops. Of spring training baseball. That's not a ton of time if they're getting some rest every once in a while to get acclimated to major league pitching. And so I want them to be seeing that level of pitching, and hopefully when we get back to that, they can start being ready, more prepared for what's coming, because it gets a lot easier than the guy throwing 91 in high A, or a lot tougher than the guy throwing 91 in high A. Mike, what prospects are you looking forward to seeing this week? We're going to see a lot of them, because they'll have no choice but to play them. And so who are you looking forward to looking at as a prospect?
I'd honestly really like to see just 2 guys take some plate appearances. I'd like to see Blake Mitchell out there hitting, and I'd like to see Carson Rocafort. Both of them have gotten into games briefly.
Interestingly, both of them were demoted to minor league camp today. Oh, but they will still play. They will still play in these games because they need all the minor league guys.
Especially on that split squad day on Wednesday.
Yeah, they're definitely playing. Yeah.
But that sucks. I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't suck that bad. They were going to get demoted at some point anyway. But I haven't got a chance to see either one of them hit yet. So
go watch a replay of that Dodgers game. I think Mitchell has 1 plate appearance in it. Maybe.
Oh, did he?
Maybe 2. I can't remember.
Okay. I've only ever seen 1 from him, but we'll see. I'd like to see some of those guys. Those are guys I'm excited about that are prospects. Love to see them get some plate appearances. Other guys, I'm not too excited about Drury or Newman. So I might be a little disappointed this next week.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see more Gavin Cross plate appearances. I watched a few of them in the Dodgers game today as I rewatched that, or watched a replay of that, I should say. I saw some decent things in those Dodgers plate appearances, and then I saw some stuff where I was like, I wanted more. I wanted a better plate appearance than that. I wanted, this or that. And so I'll be just interested to see more of his plate appearances, because he did have a strong finish to last year. He just, and they could really use him regaining some of that prospect value, but I'm not seeing it consistently against some of the better pitching he's facing in spring training. But we have seen some flashes of good stuff, some flashes of power. And you want to see that sort of thing. You want to see him taking pitches, being patient, and finding the power that he has. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode, with the Just About Outside segment, where we talk about something that just interests us outside of baseball. This is not a baseball talk time. If you come for the baseball talk, stop listening, right? But Mike, I know you have interesting stuff to talk about, because you always do. What's happened to you in this last week?
Not much. I mean, we did have, I guess the thing I'm going to talk about is we kind of celebrated my wife's birthday this weekend, kind of last weekend and this weekend, but
go Morgan.
And the great thing that happened was my wife organized, kind of separate from her birthday. The last time she hung out with her friends, she organized something where she's like, hey, I want to do like a game night. And I know like nobody wants to host, so I'll host the first one, and then it's going to kind of rotate between everybody. So she happened to schedule it for the weekend after her birthday. So it became like a birthday celebration as well. But like just that simple little game night did so much for her that I wanted to explore. Like there's a lot of healing power in game nights. Okay. And it's not about the games that you're playing or anything like that, but it's about being around people in a low stakes, nobody cares environment that really can bring you back. We've been dealing with our son being sick a lot. My wife is taking a college class on top of her full-time job, and we've just had a ton of stuff to do. And getting that one night where she didn't have to think about any of that stuff and I knew it was going to happen, because as soon as I saw her sit down with them and talk to them, it was like they fall right back into the old routine of friends, that you fall into when you've had friends for 20 plus years. And so then the next morning when I woke up, and I took, kind of the share of the parenting duties that night, the next morning when I woke up and I said, "Hey, how'd it go last night?" Cause I went to bed way before they did. She was like, "Oh, I really needed that." And I'm like, yeah, I feel like everybody kind of needs that reset, once in a while. And so that's the healing power of game night is strong. It's a strong, free way to relieve some of that stress and, kind of remind yourself about the important things. So, organize a little game night, you and your friends. Be a good time.
You do have to purchase the game if you don't already own it. But
I think a lot of people have some games.
They have some games.
Or deck of cards cost you nothing. They played mostly cards that night. So
it's like a buck. You can get it real cheap. And so, yeah, wonderful. Love a game night. I had a similar night on Saturday night, which was wonderful. But you love those sorts of things. Really rejuvenating. Mike, I'm talking a little bit about something that's more ethereal like that too, and that is the energizing power of being around new ideas. I went to a conference on Friday and Saturday, not necessarily among my peers because it was a conference for undergraduate honors students. I teach in the honors program at UMKC, and the undergraduate students put on like presentations for their own original research. They presented posters and that sort of thing. And then they gave panels and stuff like that. It ran like a normal academic conference if you've ever been to one of those, except it was all research done by undergraduates who are honor students. And if you don't know, they're very smart, typically very driven, that sort of thing. But it was just so wonderful to go and watch all these presentations. Yeah, some of them were by people who were real nervous because this was their first time, but they all had interesting, good ideas to talk about. They all were excited about the fact that they had learned about this thing and they wanted to share it with other people. And that's a really energizing way to be. And so if you've never had that experience, I know some people go to conferences for their jobs and stuff like that. It can be great to go somewhere where people are talking about original ideas that they care about, because what it does is it gets you to start thinking about original ideas of your own. They talk about stuff and then you start having ideas. Like nothing ever makes me want to do research more than going to hear other people talk about theirs. And I don't typically want to do research. I hate doing research, really, but I get research ideas when I'm hearing other people talk about the things that excite them and interest them. And so it's really an energizing thing to be around. It's wonderful to have smart people all around you talking about smart things, because it just makes you feel like, hey, this is a nice, energizing experience.
What I did on Saturday? I did something similar. I went to a trade show for auto parts manufacturers or people who are tied into the automotive mechanical industry.
Same thing.
Right. It was wild. Like I highly recommend at some point, just go flip through the wherever newspaper or go to a convention center's website, just see what they got coming up and just go visit. Like buy the tickets. They're usually like $30 or something like that. We used to go to the RV show all the time. This was one for my wife's work where it's just people who work in the auto like industry, but it's all like auto repair industry. It was very, very eye opening and very interesting to just walk around that place. But yeah, that's there's different ideas in there too. Probably not the ideas like yours were flying around.
No. Ours were like, I analyzed all these things. Yeah, it was I listened to a presentation on some sort of chemistry thing. And that's the coolest thing about going to these sorts of things is a lot of times I'm listening to projects I have no clue about. Like, I don't know anything about this topic. It's all foreign to me, but that's great. It's good to stretch your brain out in those ways. Anyway, yeah, wonderful, wonderful activities. Hopefully we can get to some Royals baseball here soon. We'll be back again next week to talk more Royals baseball. Hopefully we get some on TV. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.